Go. I think we are live. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. It's a bit of a somber day. We're here to remember. We've got a few guys on the panel here tonight. So we're going to try and share some stories with everybody. And if anybody in the side chat would like to jump on as well, just let me know, and I'll throw the link out, and we can bring you on if you've got stories you want to share with us, or if anybody's out there was involved with this, was actually there at the time and they want to share it, just please let us know, and we'll bring you on. So as you can see, we got Elliot here, AR Guns has joined us, Jamie, JH586, and then Mike Hillbilly Up is with us. If we can get some more guys on, it'd be great. But let's just have a great show, guys. Let's just remember what happened. Let the youngsters know that this is something we need to remember, and we'll share some stories. So, what are your thoughts, guys? Elliot, if you want to go first.
At the time, I know exactly where I was. I was in a hospital hallway with a friend of mine. He actually drove me there. And I remember seeing it on TV about 9 a.m. in the morning. I can't remember the exact time. But I was looking up at television in the hospital. It was Conyers, Georgia, actually. And it was a shock. I remember everybody was freaked out about everything you could think of. I heard stories of, I remember thinking back, some of it, Americans were so weirded out, they thought that airplane was flying over farmland or something, was maybe going to dump some chemicals or something. All kinds of weird things was taking place at the time. But it was a shocking day, for sure. I actually recorded, my brother's got it now. I actually bought probably 50 VHS tapes, blank, and recorded around the clock news coverage. And it's still on the tapes at my brother's house now. I gave them to him here a few years ago. And so the whole entire event's recorded. I'd like to go get those tapes. I never gave it to him, but I did. But it was a bad day for America. Because we didn't know if we was going to get attacked. We'd already got hit, 3 times, the Pentagon, and then that Pennsylvania flight, was it Pennsylvania? Yeah, hit the, where the passengers actually fought, the terrorists, and took the plane down. But anyway, I'll hush and let somebody else go next. But good to see you all. Thanks for the invite, Mac. Good to see you, Hillbilly, Jamie, side chat. Good to be here with you guys.
No, and what about you, Jamie? What was your first image of what you saw? Can you remember where you are and what you were doing?
I was at work. It was a very nice Monday morning. It was really the first day of the year that, how you get that crispness in the air when fall starts coming on, and I don't know if MacMan understands, but when here in the South during the summertime, it is just you walk outside, even first thing in the morning, and that humidity hits you in the face, and it was the first morning I remember that year that wasn't like that, where it was clear and crisp, and you could feel that crispness in the air, clear as a bell, no haze, and it gets hazy down here. It was hazy down here today. But that particular morning, I walked across the street from my shop and got a cup of coffee, and I remember walking through the break room there and glancing up at the TV, and our public affairs director was there, and he had the news on, and he said, "Can you believe this?" And I stopped, and this is just a few minutes after 8. I mean, maybe 15, 20 minutes after 8. And I looked up the TV, and the World Trade Center was smoking. And I remember them saying that a plane had flew into the World Trade Center. Well, I'm thinking, a little crop duster flew into the thing by accident or something, and I remember it was almost comical, like, what pilot can't miss that? and then
Mhm.
it, and it was almost lighthearted at first, and then you're standing there watching it, and then here comes this big old airliner bearing right down on the other one, and you saw it just come through that thing. I mean, the nose come out the other side, and that's when I knew that it wasn't funny. And then as the day went on, we learned about the other airplane that had been taken hostage, and they fought back and crashed it, and then the attack on the Pentagon, and yeah, I liken it to December 7th, 1941.
Yeah.
One of the two times that I know of that I can remember that America was attacked on its own soil. And unlike uh, the start of World War II, it wasn't a dedicated nation. It wasn't another solemn sovereign state that attacked us. It was, well, I won't say what it was, but it was not a sovereign state. It was something else. But
I
that
think it'd
don't.
be fair to say it's evil.
Well, yeah,
Mhm.
that's better than I was going to put it. Thank you. But
Yeah.
that's we were very united. That next Sunday morning, the churches were full. It was like you were walking down the street and you never met a stranger. Uh, it's like, where did that go? And
Yeah.
I hate to think that that's what tragedy has to befall our nation before we start looking out for each other. That's the way it ought to be every single day. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Jamie. Hey,
Dave,
Batman.
how you doing?
Hey, man.
Hey, R.
Hi, guys.
Hey,
Thanks
Hillbilly.
for joining
How you
us.
Good to see you. 'Cause
Okay,
it's-
what about you, Hillbilly? What's your recollection of when it happened?
Man. Just so happened the night before, I was driving a dump truck and they were asphalting downtown Branson area. And so we had to do it, I think we started like at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning when the traffic, wasn't on because they were repaving like the main strip, the downtown area and all that. So had to do it at night. And so I was in a dump truck on asphalt, and I got home. I'd worked that day too. So I got home. I mean, my butt was dragging, and it was like, oh man, 6 o'clock in the morning or something, at the time. And got the kids off to school, and I literally went in there and laid down on my bed across the bed. I didn't even like get under the covers or get undressed. I mean, I was that tired. And a little bit later my phone rings and it's my mother, and she goes and she's like, turn on the news right now and stuff. I'm like, what happened? She's like, just turn on the news. And I could tell in her voice something was wrong. And so I had a TV in my room. I turned it on. I'm like, oh my gosh. And that was just when the first plane had hit. And so, got to see right there, the second plane, like Jamie is saying, hit. And, and I'm like, what is going on here? And, just when something like that happens, I just remember like the anxiety and everything that, filled my body, and, sorrow for like, these people that is right there, being involved with this, and I ain't going to say some of the scenes that they showed on TV. Everybody's seen them, of people, leaving the trade center, and, it was horrific. I immediately jumped in my vehicle, ran to school, grabbed my 3 kids, brought them back home because at the time we had no idea what was going on. And, needless to say, I was up for several more hours, glued to the TV and news, calling friends and family, that, to make sure that everything else is okay and everything. It was just a very high anxiety day for me. And, you know, uh, lots of tears come out of my eyes that day as I watched, TV, and these news screens and stuff and what was coming through on the internet. It was really touching and, something that I will never forget. And, I don't think my kids would ever forget that. They're growing up now, married. And so it's something that, like, we was together as a family, praying for these people. And it's pretty devastating. And I could only imagine, the whole time I was thinking about these people that was right there, and there's nothing that I could do personally, to help them, from this far away for sure. But we immediately, tried helping out all we could soon after, or, when the opportunity arrived, if it was given finances or whatever the case might be. But it's very touching. And that's why I think we should never forget this. We should always remember, because when you forget about stuff in history, there's always a chance for that to happen again. And so when stuff in history, hopefully you can keep that from being, repeated. And so that's why I think we should always remember and never forget these people that had lost their lives that day. And even as years went on by, because of the lung problems and everything from the dust and, just everything else, a lot of people was affected by that. And I'm very fortunate that, for once, like right then, it looks like America came together. And, and that just, it made my heart happy for that, for sure.
Everybody remembers all the flags that was for sale everywhere. Wow, I never seen so many people selling flags.
Cool. And Thorax, do you want to share with us what you were doing and at the time when it all happened?
Well, I was working swing shift at the time, and my wife was up. She was making coffee or something. I don't know. And she had the TV on, and it was like a breaking news sort of thing. And she came back to the bedroom and she woke me up. She said, "David, you got to see this. I don't even know if it's real." And I go, "Huh?" And I kind of rolled out of bed and I walked down the hallway. By the time I got down to the bottom of the hallway, I could see the TV. And about that time, it was split second. I mean, as soon as I looked at the TV, I seen the second plane hit, and it went right through the building, like Jamie said. And my wife looked at me and says, "Is this for real?" And I looked at her. I said, "Those bastards." And I knew exactly what was going on. And so what happened? I immediately got on the phone down at work, because I work at a very high security place. And I asked them, "Hey, are you pulling people in? Are we doing any emergency, things down there that we're going to be needed for?" And the chief that was in our shop told me, he says, "Dave, why don't you just stay by the phone? We don't know what's going on right now. We know what's happening, but we don't know what's going on right now." And so I said, "Okay, I'm here." So anyway, they called me in at about 1:00. And I came into work, and when I took the turn off and went up to the main gate, they had the gate all barricaded. There was combat vehicles, and the Marines were there, and everybody was there, and they were turning away people that were just gonna, like, come on base to go to the exchange or do whatever. If they didn't have any official business there, or lived there on base, they were turning them around and telling them to leave. So I finally made my way up, and I showed my badge and the whole 9 yards. And he took a look at it, and he went and checked his clipboard because there's a certain series of numbers on it that have to match. And then he waved me through. So I went down to the pier. And again, when we got down to the pier, the Marines were there. Everybody was there. So they escorted all the civilians that were coming in on swing shift in groups down to the pier. We went to our shops. We were told to stay in our shops. Anyway, yeah, it was pretty wild day. Right in the thick of it. I remember I went outside because they allowed us to go outside for about 10 minutes or so. I went outside, and the USS Fife was at anchor out in the canal. A great big destroyer, guided missile, destroyer, and they had their radar cranked up, and man, there was like F-15s, man, flying over the top of the base. There was helicopters all over the place, and so I finished my smoke or whatever I was doing, and I went back into the building, and it was funny. We had our computer on, and the radar that was on the Fife was cranked up so loud. All you seen on the screen was you'd see the computer, but then you'd see this wave go through like this every time that thing came around. Man, it was so they had it cranked up big time. They were watching everything in the sky. Yeah, so it was a pretty stressful day, and that turned into a 24-hour day. They didn't let us go home after that. They came by and they broke out some cots, and then the ships that were moored there, they ran us over some food and stuff like that. And we were told, hey, until further notice, you're on duty, buddy. That's it. So they just kind of recruited us right there. It was a pretty intense day, to say the least.
Wow.
Yeah. I remember when they came in and finally told us we can go home, and they pulled around with a bus, and they wouldn't let us walk out. So they bussed us out. They stood guard the whole 9 yards, made sure we all got in our cars. When we left, we were escorted out of their combat vehicles around us. So it was pretty intense.
Yeah, that sounds pretty tough. So just a quick one, guys. If any guys want to jump on, I'm dropping links into the chat. If you want to come on and share a story with us, you're welcome to, or you can just post it up in the side chat. We really appreciate you guys in the side chat. If you want to share anything, just post it or just let us know, and click on the link if you want to jump on, and you can jump in for 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever you want. Share your story, and if you want to get out, then you can go out, but we'd love to have you on. So going back to, I'll go. So I just went to work as a normal day, and with us being 8 hours, I think we're 8 hours behind you or ahead of you. We was in the middle of the afternoon, and I was just driving the tool truck around as normal. And I pulled up into this one shop, and there's normally 6 or 8 mechanics in there. Quite a big shop. And I walk in, and the place is empty. There is nobody in there. There's no cars running. I think, what the hell's going on here? So I'm walking around, and I walk in the front office, and there's nobody there. The staff have gone. It's empty. And I thought, where is everybody? I came back out, and then I saw somebody walking into the break room. So I walked over to the break room, and the whole staff, there's probably 20 staff, were in the break room watching the TV. And as I walked in, it was about the time where the second plane was just about a hit. I saw the second plane hit in. So I was watching it, and I was asking, what's going on? What's this? Is it a movie? And they said, no, it's happening live in America. This is, they say, in the Trade Center. So the first one got hit, and we were all talking and looking in and watching it. And they were saying, was it an accident or what was going on? And then with that, the camera spun around and the second plane was coming in and just straight through the second building.
Mm-hmm.
And it took my breath away. I was standing there watching it and just couldn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
So as all of you, we're watching it all unfold and people are talking, they're trying to figure out what's going on and everything, and I'm watching it. And so I phoned my wife, because my wife's working in a like a factory where they build monitors for hospitals, and I know they've got no radio TV on in there. So I phoned her, she picked up, and I said, you need to go to your nearest TV, switch it on and watch it. So they all went into their break room, switched the TV on, and they started watching it. And I don't know if it was the same over here or with the video, with the TV coverage, but in the UK, they pretty much show everything. And I can remember watching it, and the camera zoomed in, and there was, like you said, there was things dropping from the Trade Center, and you're thinking, what's falling? And then they said people were either going to burn or they were going to jump.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching that, and I was crying. I'll be honest with you. It broke me down. And then the camera spun round onto, I don't know which Trade Center it was, and there was a guy hanging from a water hose. Whatever stories they were up, he'd climbed out of the window, hanging onto a water hose, and they zoomed in on him, and he was there, and the next thing he just couldn't hold anymore. And it was probably the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And the camera stayed on it, but then pulled away at the last minute, which thankfully they did. But to see that guy hanging from that hose, like two stories down from where the fire was, just holding on for dear life, and then just had to let go. It was that one image will stick with me for the rest of my life. It was unbelievable, and I'll be honest with you, I'm tearing up now, because it's what I saw that day was just terrible.
That was the hardest part, wasn't it, Mike? I seen them, going down like that. One guy had his knee bent. That was, God, to me, it was horrific. Watching
And then
that.
they started
That's the
showing.
part that. Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, go on.
That was the part that really got me, watching those people coming out of the windows. That was
And then we were watching people walking out the street, sort of covered in dust, and some of them were walking basically with their clothes shredded off them, and they were just coming out in droves through the thick smoke and dust and trying to get away from the buildings, and their clothes were hanging off. They had no shoes in their feet. They were hanging on to people. It was gruesome, and I just can't believe people would do that. So we stayed in that room I was in there for probably about 2 hours watching it. My day was done. I wasn't going to go to work. And then the sirens went off. We had all we were in probably the second biggest city in Wales, and the emergency sirens went off. And it came across the news that they'd grounded every single plane in the UK. Nothing was flying except for military. And there's a military base quite close to where I was at the time. There was jets going off. There was helicopters going off. It was just like a movie scene. It's just to hear the siren going off in anger, not in practice, and then see the military jets flying over really low, flying over the airports. It really struck home that even though it happened over here, it hit everybody in the world. And I think they pretty much grounded every plane in the whole world, I think, for the couple of hours afterwards until they knew what was going on. And things will never be the same. The security in airports has changed. Security everywhere has changed. So from that day, our lives changed so much. And for the young people here that weren't born in those days, they've grown up in this world. They never knew it before 9/11, when we had a lot more freedom. It was a lot easier to get around, and things changed so much and they need to know. We can't be shut up. It's history, and it needs to be out there for people to know what happened and how it's changed our lives. So yeah, that's my little story, guys.
Thanks for sharing that, Mac, man, because hearing it, from you being overseas, and how it affected you. There's a lot of us that might not known how it affected other countries at that moment. And so, man, it's so awesome for you sharing. You said something right there. I just want to tell, if there's anybody out there that's younger,
Yeah.
used to, when we were going to take, say, a loved one to the airport to go off on a trip, guess what? You got there about 30 minutes early, at least around here, our bigger airport, and you carried their luggage in for them, or whatever, if it was your mother or somebody, and you helped check their luggage in. They boarded the plane. You stood there and looked out the window, watched the plane take off. Same way, if you was picking them back up, you went right in. You got to stand there, watch the plane land, looking out the window. As soon as they were coming off the plane right there, you was able to greet them. There was security guards, yeah. But none of this, checking, all this having to be there a couple hours early, going through TSA, all this stuff, that did not exist back then, at least not in my part of the country. And I think it's probably safe to say in most of the parts of the United States, it's probably like that. And
the Patriot Act came about. We're still living under that. Most people know it in the side chat. Somebody mentioned it a few minutes ago. TGW Outdoors did. That's a bad side effect of it. And the federalization of the airports was in private security before. So that's not a good thing. A lot of things definitely were bad out of that.
Well, I kind of look at it this way. It was the day that the United States lost their innocence. We were shown, what terrorism is and how vulnerable we can be. I think that woke up a lot of people. And like you guys were saying, before that time, heck, we had a lot of freedoms. There are a lot of things that we do now. We never thought about doing back back before this happened. You didn't have all the security and layers and layers and layers of security and stuff like that you have to go through. A lot has changed, and like you said, people that were born after that, this is the world they grew up in. But yeah, I remember, when I was a teenager, I think the only thing we were really worried about, and you didn't even really think about it, was, an atomic bomb, something like that. I mean, you didn't really take that seriously. So when this happened, I think it opened a lot of people's eyes and realized that there is evil in this world. There's evil people that are willing to do evil things. And we lost our innocence. We couldn't just, we just couldn't stick our head in the sand and make believe it wasn't there.
It proved the fact to me. And, we think that the Secret Service is protecting the president and all this crazy crap. Let me tell you something. This 9/11 only drove it home even more. I'd already come to this conclusion, but if somebody is willing to sacrifice themselves, there's nobody that's untouchable.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it with the attempt on Reagan. Gerald Ford had 4 attempts on his life, and
yeah, that I remember seeing that on the news when Ziggy Fromm she was like in the sidelines and Ford was walking along, and he had the Secret Service there and everything. She just went underneath the barrier and walked out right in front of him and had a 1911, pointed it right in his face. And I mean, I mean, he was filling his pants. He didn't know what to think. And the Secret Service grabbed her and they just mopped up the floor with her face. I'm telling you. Yeah. And you're right. You're right. When people are psychotic and they're willing to sacrifice everything for their cause, it's very difficult to stop those people.
You're talking about Squeaky Fromm?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, isn't that crazy? Echoes of Charles Manson years later.
Yeah, I remember seeing that on the news, and it's funny. They only ran that reel for a very short time because I think Ford was embarrassed by it, but and they didn't want everybody else to get the same idea. But I'll tell you, it was pretty intense. I mean, I can see it in Ford's face, man. He says, "That's it. This is how it's all going to end." Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He was filling his pants. Believe me. Yeah.
So I'm trying to put up everybody's comments from the side chat. Really appreciate you sharing everything with us, guys. And just another reminder, there's links in the side chat. If anybody wants to jump on, you're all welcome just to come in and share a story, especially if there's somebody there. I would love to speak to somebody who was actually there that day or helped out. It'd be great to have you on. So don't be shy. Just hit the link and just come on. It's you're all welcome. You don't have to be on for long, but you can just come on. That's what we hear. We're just here sharing, talking, and remembering.
Well, we're still getting bullets hitting power plants occasionally, or transformers, amazingly across the United States, and they're doing a lot of photographing. They think too. Spies are to this day. So.
You can share the story and pictures if you want. So Chessboard's just come on and said you can share the story and the pictures, Mike, if you want to.
Yeah, I have that here on my he sent me an email. I get it pulled up here.
Get him to wave at you in the background, Mike.
Say that again.
Get him to a thumbs up.
If I can answer GGW, I think what it was is that they gave her the gun, but the hammer was down. And so when she jumped out in front of Ford, she raised it up. She was pulling the trigger, but the hammer wasn't back. There was one in the pipe. Yeah. Somebody put the hammer down and they gave her the gun. So yeah. Yeah, we definitely lost our innocence, and not just that. Look at how careful we are about our media anymore, and our basic trust throughout our nation about what's going on. And I mean, back before that 9/11, I mean, you pretty much trusted what you heard and trusted what you seen. And after 9/11, I think everybody was kind of so much in shock. We even today we're still leery about what we see and what we hear, and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and our lives will never be the same again. It's changed forever. When something like that happens, everything changes forever, and there's certain things in history of life that change things, and this is definitely one of them. Definitely one of them.
And the conspiracy theory started spinning out for decades. Another side effect.
Okay. This was sent to me from Chessboard. He got some text here about it. Says that let's see, his nephew was in the FBI, I believe it was in New York City at the time of the Twin Towers. Says here's this photo you gave me. His face and ID's been blacked out. Yeah. On September 11th, he was on his way to New York Trade Center in a rental. He's doing like 98 miles an hour on the New Jersey Turnpike. Was stopped by a New Jersey state cop. asked, "Do you know how fast he's going?" He said, "Yeah." He showed him his ID, and the cop said, "Let's see." Yes, the cop. He said, "Well, what am I supposed to do? You know, I got to get there or whatever." And so the cop said, "You know, continue what you're doing." You know, and so he got there and helped. Let's see, one of the guys that worked with on a flight simulator. His brother worked the first shift in the Twin Towers, um, the one that the plane went into. The weekend before, I guess the day before he had 9/11, he had a terrible hangover and missed the train going back to New York City. And so that was the only reason he wasn't in there. And there's just, story after story of stuff like this. I mean, but man, that picture right there just says a lot. And there's so many pictures that are just unbelievable. What happened?
There's one where it's a cross too. I think one of the steel beams was in the shape of a cross. I was working in clean rooms back in contact lens company. I actually worked with a guy that was in the Pashtun tribe in Afghanistan. His father was over there. His name was Masood, and he was hardcore. He told me, he says they think America is weak, and I said, yeah, I know. But
Well, some people probably don't even agree with this. I think we should have left some of the remnants of those buildings still be there in New York, and we shouldn't have changed anything. We should have cleaned it up, hazard waste wise, but we should have still left the remnants of some of those of the two buildings sitting there, rather than bulldozing it all and planting grass and making a park out of it, so you can go down there and buy a hot dog, sit on a park bench, and say, "Gee, 9/11 really was bad."
make it a real memorial.
Yeah, make it a real memorial. You go over to Europe. You go over to Europe, and you go into Western Europe there, and there's like bomb craters, and they've got signs there saying that this is where people died and the whole bit, and this was dropped in 1944, and blah blah blah, and they didn't do anything to cover it up, and I know we believe me, it'd be a lot harder to forget if you could go look at it. And what I mean? Yeah, that it's still there. And it this is what happens right here. Yeah. You got a prime example there. And I don't think we should have bulldozed it and prettied the place up, made a visitor center, and set up a Boy Scouts troop building or something there or whatever. I mean, not what happened there wasn't nice at all. We need to remember that.
Yeah, it's like you said, all that's there now is like a pretty garden and a memorial and everything, which they could have still done. But like you said, they should have left, especially that picture that Mike just showed now of that guy standing in front of that skeletonized building. That should have been left there. Because from when you see the pictures of how those trade centers were side by side, and after they fell, how small that pile of rubble looked from those huge buildings. Like I said, clean it up, get rid of what we needed to get rid of. But that skeletonized building should have been left. It was a memorial. So people died in that building, and they were in that building, and they're part of that building. And it's okay doing another memorial with all their names and everything. They could have still done that.
This ground has American blood on it.
Yeah, and they should they should have left it. You're quite right. I totally agree with you there.
Everybody remember Todd Beamer said, "Let's roll."
Yeah,
in 1993.
I looked for my shirt. I literally they were selling those shirts to help raise money, and of course we all bought one, and I still have mine. It's somewhere deep in the closet. I'm trying, and I looked for it before we come on because I was just going to hang it up back here, and I couldn't find it. But that right there, Bucker. That's a friend of mine. His name's Nick. He's I'll let him tell his story. I think he's going to get to come on here in a few minutes. Anyway, he's a New York firefighter, and I've heard a little bit, from him about it. But I think you guys will be really interested in what he has to say.
Well, I've got a question for y'all. What did y'all think of the leadership during and following from our president?
I think it was good because let me say this. I'm going to say it. They say if who had got elected back then, they believed he probably would have sent a few missiles over there, and that's all he would have did. And you know who I'm talking about that ran in 2000. So I won't go political.
I thought he did it. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you was done. I'm sorry, buddy.
That's all right. So
anyway, I thought
he did a great job. Sorry.
For one, going to the baseball game, just thereafter, he was told not to go, by any means, and he chose to go. And what happened's been terrible. There's no doubt about that. But we also have to go on with our lives too, and I think that made a pretty powerful statement. And also the statement he made there on Ground Zero, I don't know what else the person could have done better. I mean, there probably is, but I don't know.
No. Knowing history, a lot of presidents would have logged a few missiles, and that would be it. I mean, it might have been a mini war on, but that would be about it. So really, he kept saying, just be patient. Just hang on. And then we started, bombing the crap out of them.
Hey, Nick. Hey, guys. I'll introduce you to Nick here. He's an awesome guy. Buddy, you've been busy all day according to your Instagram.
Oh, yeah, man. Today was always a long day, but especially long today doing our run and ride. I still haven't gotten back to my car, so I'm on the way there now to finally be done for the day and head home.
Man, I appreciate you and all your brothers and sisters there in New York. You guys, firefighters and other people, really went through a lot. You want to tell these guys a little bit about yourself and the history there, buddy?
Yeah. So for me, I'm fourth generation New York City firefighter, going back to 1894. So the relative, the original, the OG from the before 1900s was my father's side of the family, and my grandfather, my mother's side, and my uncle on my dad's side. My grandfather died in '85. New York Telephone Company fire, cancer. It was like the 9/11 before 9/11. Like the air was safe to breathe. So my uncle, who was a volunteer firefighter on the island, he went into after September 11th. He was certified. He just passed away on Friday of World Trade Center cancer. So yeah, and my dad was a paid professional guy on Long Island, and he was gone like 2 weeks after 9/11. I didn't see him until he came home, and then he wasn't home much for about the year or so after. It was, funerals every other day. So I'm on 16 years. It's the greatest job in the world, and yeah, I don't know what. So today we did. We lost 443 firefighters that day. So, there's tunnel of towers, there's, different types of, like runs, events, stuff like that. And buddy of mine, I work in Far Rockaway. We're on the beach in South Queens. So we got a lot of fitness guys. And this is the third year. 3 years ago, one of the guys just was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to run, the marathon's 26.2. I'm going to run 34.3. And so we just did it, him and another guy, and like 2 or 3 other people, or one other person ran. Some people ran some of it. And now this year we had, we have a lot of people on the way, at the kickoff and on the way and stuff. People meet out. But we had 5 runners this year. And 5 runners do the full distance and about 18 on bikes. So it's a great day for it being a tragic day and a solemn day, but we do this for our brothers, and it's how we never forget. Keep memory alive.
That's awesome, brother. That is awesome. Is there anything you want to share about 9/11 that day or anything? And also, Nick, I shared your Instagram here on the chat. Guys, if you want to go over and check out his Instagram, he's got a lot of great short videos on there throughout the day of what him and his brothers and sisters did today. So. I know it's hard, but if you don't want to, that's fine too. No, we understand totally.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I would respectfully. So when you talk like the memorial and building back, everyone has different feelings about it, and it took a long time and a lot of different mulling over, how they were going to do it. And when I say no one's more critical of the process and what they decided to do, and I would say that pretty much everyone from newer guys to all the old timers, all the old dogs that were there that were on the job 22 years ago. Everyone pretty much overwhelmingly in the end, very, how should I put it? It was done tastefully, and I get the whole the graves, the site, and what they could have built differently and whatnot, and it is New York, and the show must go on. Like in the New York spirit. So,
you bet.
It's I get people's opinions that might not be 100% on board with it, but for us it's like the show must go on. New York City is going to continue to evolve, and we couldn't have just left it as just like a Pearl Harbor, like it just like stuck in time essentially. So yeah, that's just kind of my. So I would say from like I hear, your perspective, and I would say respectfully for those that are most critical of the whole process, it was done very well, very tastefully, And my biggest or a lot of our biggest concerns was, like watering down, like what really happened, and like the memory and yada yada yada. And I'd say, if you ever make it to New York City to visit, make time to spend 2 or 3 hours in the museum, and they didn't hold back. If you if you haven't seen it yourself, that like the exhibits and going through what happened and like the history, they weren't. It wasn't overly, distastefully, graphic and whatnot, but it wasn't. They didn't sugarcoat too much,
Well, that's good. I know my wife's been was there. She got me this hat and a few other things, and I mean, she was really touched. I mean, it was really hard for her. She said, and she's really touched by the whole thing. She said, I mean, a lot.
Yeah, it was. It's. I've only been once. And I'd say most of us usually, we kind of go once, and unless family comes in to like get us to go, like once is kind of enough. And
Yeah.
Like I said, it's you get there, and I mean, for when it was being built for, about over like a 6-month period, every piece of so they stored in the warehouses all the rigs, all the like everything that's or like a large all the vehicles and stuff that got crushed and whatnot that are inside the museum. They were all stored at JFK. So for like a 6-month period, when after everything was like when they were ready to bring everything back in, we were up at like 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. They were doing we did escorts for not their obviously remains, but of all the equipment and stuff to go from JFK all the way to Ground Zero. And that was pretty early on. It's probably in like 2000. I don't even know. I got on 2007, so maybe like 2010.
Yeah.
And like I said, just they did a great job for what it is. And I know I can be a pretty big hard ass and pretty have pretty big opinions about things being too soft and politics and all that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of that.
That's awesome, buddy. Man,
Thank you
I know we all appreciate you sharing. Go ahead, Jillian McMahon there. You guys want to ask Nick?
Thanks for coming on, Nick. I really appreciate it, and we're really touched with what you have to say, and we appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit with you. I know it must be super hard for you with you being there and everything, and we're just bystanders looking in, and we don't know how hard it was for everybody there. We can just imagine what it was like for you guys, but you were actually there, and we're just so grateful you were, and just thank you so much. It's just
so me personally, I wasn't on the fire department yet. I didn't get on until 2007. So I was in high school when the trade center happened. But take care, guys. Great, Bruce. Take care. That's my buddy's parents. That he died line of duty last February. They just left. They rode with us today.
Wow, that's great.
So I was in high school. I could see, we could see the smoke from the towers. It was surreal thinking back to that point in time.
and it must be tough to go back.
I don't know how much time you have.
So I was just going to say, it must be tough to go back to Ground Zero. I've never been to New York. Me and my wife are planning a trip pretty soon, and we're gonna go there and visit it. And it's going to be very, very emotional. Even though I'm from the UK and I saw it all unfolding from the UK, it really did hit me, and I really want to go there and visit and pay my respects. and I think it's gonna be a tough day when we go there.
Yeah, bring some.
Nick, I don't know how much time you do have left, but before you do have to get off here, of course you're welcome to stay. But is there anything you'd like to just kind of tell us and everybody watching about what 9/11, like what we should keep like in our mind, something we should tell our children, our grandchildren? Is there like anything you want to personally put out there for all of us?
I'd say the only thing would be like a defining like perspective for that day was like specifically pertaining to the fire department was those guys working that day.
Yep.
When the
Jamie,
when the planes hit, I know guys that were working that were probies, and like this, you knew guys that on the rig. I know one guy specifically. They grabbed him and he said, "Today's not your day, kid. You're not coming," and threw him off the rig because.
wow.
Any of the firemen that went in there, for the most part, I'm pretty sure you had a good idea that there was a chance that you weren't coming out. So no one would have done anything different. They talked the radios, the this, the that, and nothing would have changed. And if something that gets kind of like for a fire perspective, you can Google on YouTube, 9/11, World Trade Center, FDNY Department Radio, and you can actually listen from essentially when the plane struck all the way through until like our fire ground communications. Well, not fire ground, but between the battalions, like all the chiefs and dispatch for like Manhattan radio, citywide radio. And you can listen to in like almost real time how the events unfolded, and but be prepared for an emotional roller coaster if you do that, because it's pretty intense. But that'd be it.
Nick, I want to
Thank
say
you.
something to you. I'm Jamie from Georgia. I know
What I mean, Jamie.
a lot of folks kid around and make fun of New York and New Yorkers. And hey, I'm from Georgia. You hear my accent, so I know what that feels like, brother. I want to say on 9/11 in 2001, I think every red-blooded American was a New Yorker that day, and you had our hearts. Still have our hearts, and continued prayers. I know probably to this day there's still folks that are losing their life because of stuff that happened that day. What with the chemicals flying around and all that stuff. But we appreciate you, brother, and you're not forgotten. And I pray to God that we never forget.
Thank you. And yeah, to reiterate that point. So that day, the FDNY, we lost 343 firefighters that day, and since then we've lost 341 more to World Trade Center cancer.
Wow.
That was a stat that was shared today. So,
My goodness.
All those years ago, and people are still dying. It's terrible. It's just absolutely terrible.
yeah, it's one thing that they fortunately did right afterwards, multiple, all the different, bills, and like the Zadroga Act was like the final one, like for getting coverage, for medical, and for the other portion was like the financial aspect of like losing, like because obviously a lot of families lost like the breadwinner essentially. And yeah, it's fortunately all that stuff got worked out. So like my aunt, she'll get my uncle Ronald, he just retired from the Long Island Railroad, I want to say 4 years ago, and then he came down with cancer about a little over a year ago. And so essentially, depending on when he retired, the pension system, there are like rates that you say, okay, I'll take 100%, but if I die tomorrow, like my wife gets nothing, or there's different percents, and what the whatever act or what have you for World Trade Center illness, though. So my aunt she'll continue to be to receive his pension until she passes away. So there is, in like the long term, for a while things were a bit up in the air, but they came true on following through on covering everyone and the families especially, obviously. But yeah.
Well, that's good they did that. That's real good because they should have. There's no doubt about that. I mean,
there was some like political, like whatever they do with the nonsense they do, the back and forth, and using it as like a bargaining chip, and then eventually they finally straighten things out. So, but yeah, man, we appreciate you. You guys appreciate your kind words and stuff, and the one thing that I like people talk as far as like keeping the memory, never forget. It's like now we have a new probie class starting in November, I believe, and I think this will be the first probie class that we're gonna have probies getting hired that were born after September 11th.
Wow.
And just what that kind of the message that's reiterates to me is remembering to to share what what happened that day. Everyone knows pretty much the moment they heard they know exactly what they were doing, exactly what what I mean, like just a moment frozen in time. And sharing that with with people that are unaware, and all these young kids that weren't around for it or were really young. And I mean, I had riding, like I said, we rode the 34.3 miles, and people cheered and this and that, and cars, and there were a few things that I picked up. One, we were going through one of the parks in Manhattan before we hit the World Trade, and a couple people clapped, this, that, and then this girl, I heard it out of like my peripheral. She's like, "Oh, right, that's today."
Wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so two things. The initial reaction was like one of just like mind-boggling, like almost anger. But then reality set in real quick, was like, but that's why we're doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you were saying about the hiring these new kids to come on now that were born afterwards. Have you had a chance to speak to anyone to see how what they feel about it?
FDNY is we're the largest fire department in the world. with I think the top 5 U.S. cities combined are don't equal our numbers. We have like 243 firehouses, like 378 companies. So our probie classes, they start with around 300, like 350, 380, or maybe it's like 400 probies. So unless you're like assigned to probie school or like the fire academy where it goes on, like things like that will have like interactions like that later on in the firehouse after they graduate and then they get assigned. But nothing like they might do stuff like that in probie school, because we do stuff like relating to like trauma and stress and dealing with trauma and stress. But yeah, anything more specific than that, that's it's just out of our scope, I guess.
Wow.
Thank you. Anybody else got any questions for Nick? No.
Oh, good. Listen, I appreciate you guys for having me on. I appreciate you guys having a stream, talking about it. And
Thank you for being here.
Really
thank you.
appreciate you.
For so many people, it's kind of become just another day. So I appreciate you guys, keeping the memory alive.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do, like not to forget and remind people that it happened. Don't forget about it. It changed everybody's lives right across the world, and it's something that we must not forget. We must keep telling our young people about it, and and I can hear it in your voice how emotional you are about it. But like I said, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing that little bit. It's really appreciate it. That's all I can say, really.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we sure do appreciate you, Nick.
Cool.
But I do know you have a lovely
say
family. Oh, I thought I'd interrupt you. I was going to say, I do know you have a lovely family waiting at home for you. And so, anytime you have to, jump, we understand that. We just appreciate, what all, you shared with us. And you guys are, still in our hearts and prayers, something that happened 20 years ago and it's, still affecting families, and so.
I appreciate that. With that, I'm going to hop off. I have like a 25-mile ride home. So appreciate it, gentlemen.
Okay.
All right. Nick, thanks a lot, Brandon.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it, y'all.
New York firefighter. That was good.
Thank you.
Wow. You could hear the emotion and the thing in his voice after all that time. And like you said, he wasn't actually there at the time, but you can just, how passionate is he about it and how much emotion that guy's feeling. It's just what everybody must go through. And we're not in New York. Imagine all those people in New York that were there, and it's and all those firefighters that got lost. Just they went in to save people's lives, and those buildings came down. It was just, like you said, most of them knew going in there that they might not be coming out, and they still went in there. They went in there to save lives, and they saved so many lives. We lost a lot of people, but God damn, did they save a lot of lives out of those buildings before they came down. And if it wasn't for those guys, how many more people, the number would be double that we lost that day, I think, rather than just where we were. It's just unbelievable.
And we're still losing them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even when those planes went, like I said, going back when I was watching it, and those planes went in, and you saw the building on fire, and you just thought, okay, everybody above the point, it's looking pretty grim. Not for one moment did I expect those buildings to come down like they did. When that first one came down, it's
Yeah, they just crumbled.
It's just how it all. I don't know, with it, probably the fire, the burning on the interior. You just, but for both those buildings just to collapse in a heap like that was just unbelievable. It was heartbreaking. And like I said, I was on the other side of the pond. It was just, I didn't know anybody. I was watching it coming live on TV. But for all you guys over here, that it was happening in your backyards, and I just
I think what happened was, I think when the planes hit, that kind of crumbled the foundation. The fact that they stayed up as long as they did, and then the weight of the airplane and all the people, and they just pancaked down. And I never thought I'd see that either, but they just pancaked it straight down like they did a controlled demolition.
The fuel in the jets actually melted a lot of the steel too up there.
Yeah, the structure itself suffered a lot of fire damage, and the steel wouldn't got to a point where it it's like annealing. It got soft.
Yeah,
and I found out that the spray-on fire retardant that they used, when they built the buildings, that stuff caught on fire as well. But once the roof went and started going down, the rest of it just peeled off, just like the skin of the whole thing just started coming apart, and it just crumbled apart all the way down to the bottom. Yeah, it was pretty miraculous thing to watch. Yeah, I couldn't imagine what it would have been like if, to be those people and being trapped in those buildings. That just would just be terrible.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just
I don't know how a
change-
person can imagine it.
Just going to change the subject for a minute, guys. The side chat's been great. If any of you guys want to jump in there, I'm just going to do a little giveaway tonight. I got a sticker, little car patch with a guy holding a AR or something. I got the Max sticker, and I've got a beanie hat. So not taken away from what we're talking about, but I always like to do my giveaways. So if any guys want to join, just hashtag 911. It'll get you in the draw, and we'll do the draw in 5 minutes. Once we've been running for over an hour now, so we do the draw in 5 minutes and give a little giveaway. So if any guys want to join, just hashtag 911. We'll get you in the draw, and then we do a quick draw before we finish. Sorry, guys, carry on.
Yeah,
Bama Dad's right
okay.
there.
Go ahead, Elliot. I'm sorry.
Bama Dad says 20,000 gallons of jet fuel. Probably was about right, maybe. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of fuel burning in that building that day. I had one family member, I won't say who, called me one day here a few years ago and says, I don't think that steel melted. I says, what? I said, I used to cut cars up with a torch. I said, fire and fuel at certain temperatures make steel soft. And I won't say who it was, but they were 40 years old, and they didn't know that. I thought, unreal.
Here's another thing, too, that fire burning up there in the upper decks of the building. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's consuming oxygen. So oxygen is being drawn up through the ventilation systems and stuff like that, feeding that fire. And whenever you got a fire and oxygen, that's bad. It gets hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter.
Yeah, I could see how that could turn in like a
forge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a cauldron.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been around, gasoline or fuel, and just how it burns your eyes or it could take your breath away. I can't even imagine the fumes, alone.
Yeah.
Here's another thing, too, that we're not bringing up. Look how fast the military got activated after that.
Yep.
Man, just like, boom. I remember seeing this guy walking around with a T-shirt, and it had the rubble of the buildings, right? And these firefighters and police officers were like climbing up the mound, and it was a depiction of like Iwo Jima, where they're putting up the flag, and they had the Marines up there, and the Marines are on top of this pile, and one guy is holding his hand out, like this, to the firefighters, saying, "Nah, we got this." Yeah. So it really did. It activated a lot of our military to go in and believe, in what they were doing. I mean, we were attacked. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I would like to read something DJ Play Nice had sent in. He asked me to read it if he wasn't able to make it on the panel tonight. So if you guys don't mind, I'll read this.
Go ahead.
So what it says is, lest we forget 9/11. So it goes, I thought on some of the painful memories we now still have. And I realize the remembrance of 9/11 is my privilege, not my problem. It's my civic honor and my duty to remember, remark on, and remind those who do not or would not otherwise know. At least we forget. Man, that was a neat little poem there, buddy.
Yeah.
And I butchered it. Sorry about that. I ain't got DJ's voice, so. Yeah.
Okay, before we finish, guys, let's just go in and do the quick draw. I can see there's a few guys put their hashtags in. So let's just go in and do the draw. Let me just share the screen here. Okay, so good luck, everybody. We're going to do this quick draw now. GGW Outdoor. Congratulations, Gigi. Let me just make sure. I think I've got details here. GGW. Yeah, I think I've got your details here, so I'll get that packed up. It's probably going to go after I come back from my hunt, Gigi, and I'll get it sent out as soon as I come back from my hunt. So congratulations, that's great. Thank you so much for being here.
McMahon, may I be so bold? Do you have extra of any of that stuff?
Yeah, what you want, Jamie?
I think you need to send that pack to Nick. He entered the drawing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did see his name popping up. Yeah, if you can get me some contact details, Hillbilly, and I'll put some stuff together and I'll send some stuff out, and I'll make sure it's a good pack. I'll try and get some hats. I might be able to find some T-shirts, some stickers, some badges. So I'll send a little goodie pack out to those guys just for thanking him to be on the show. Yeah, I'll do that. Thank you, Jamie. I will do that.
Thank you.
That's awesome, Mike, man.
And
Nick will appreciate that.
He looked like a 2XL at least, buddy. So get his T-shirt size.
You look a big guy. You wouldn't want to argue with him, would you?
No, he didn't look like he had a whole lot of fat on him either.
No.
He mentioned the beach and working out.
Yeah.
City went on a 20-mile ride.
Various different size T-shirts. I'll send some hats, some stickers. I'll make up a nice little goodie bag, and I'll thank him. I'll write him a letter and thank him for coming on. Yeah, if I can get his details for you, Mike, that'd be great.
He looked twice as wide as AR did.
Say that again.
He
Twice
looked
as big as you.
He looked twice as wide as AR.
And 3 times wide as Jamie.
His arm looked the size of AR's body.
Yeah. big dude, man. It was a blessing to have him and
Yeah.
and hear his thoughts. And
I
we're taking
understood.
care of you, Nick.
Yeah. I've heard that
he's
saying
a great
before.
guy. I've known him quite a while, and he was on my live stream once. One of the very so I don't know, the first, second, or third one he was on there with us, and so, but yeah, he's a great guy.
All right,
So-
boys, it's my bedtime.
Yeah,
Mm.
I was just going to say thanks for jumping on, Jamie. We're not gonna talk about channels tonight, and I'm not going to run through the side chat. I was highlighting everybody who came on, and just want to say thanks everybody coming on. But tonight is about 9/11, so we're not going to try and steer too far away from it. So we're not going to talk about channels. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on, everybody. It was great to meet Nick, and thanks for coming on, Jamie. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you
Glad
later
to be
on.
here. Thanks for having me, brother.
Thank you, Jamie.
See you later, Jamie.
Good night.
We'll see, buddy.
With that, MacMan, I think I'm going to go ahead and roll off myself.
Yeah, we're going to wind this down now. And just like I said, big thanks to everybody in the side chat. Really appreciate the comments and the questions that were asking. Like I said, I'm not going to run through it tonight. We're just thinking about what it is today. Huge thanks to everybody on the panel. Massive thanks to Nick. And we'll probably do it again next year.
Yeah.
I think we should do it every year, Mike. It's something that we mustn't forget.
Mm-hmm.
And
You bet.
okay, so huge thanks to everybody. Congratulations to GGW on winning the prizes. I'll get some stuff, nice goodie bag sent out to Nick as well. So thanks, everybody, and we'll catch you on the next. Good night, everybody.
God bless
Y'all
everyone.
have a great evening. Bye.
Good to see you all.